Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Hope you're doing well. Today I've got some gold and silver stacking tips for you. Now, some of this information is going to be kind of basic for new stackers. There will also be some information here for you seasoned stackers, you longtime silver bugs, some things you might not have considered up until this time. Some of this information is things that I've learned over the course of years of stacking gold and silver bullion, but also I'm going to share with you some really good info from viewers just like you who've left me some comments on recent videos that I just thought were too good not to share. So there's something here for everybody, a lot of good information. If you're thinking about going out and buying some gold or silver, or even selling some gold or some silver bullion, make sure you check out this video first. So let's get to it. Did you know SD Bullion is giving away a monster box of 2023 Silver Eagle coins? Sign up today at sdbullion.com/sweepstakes. Now, first off, I do just want to say a big thank you to all of you for tuning into today's video. If you find this information helpful, if you get some value from it, please do give it a big thumbs up down below. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to the channel? I just have to say that none of this is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, so just make sure you're always doing your own due diligence. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just sharing with you some of my thoughts. Now, I want to kick things off today with this question that was posted on a recent video. How much money should you invest to start? Also, what would be a good storage safe for it? For reference, I live in Army Barracks, so I can't bolt anything down or get something massive, just good storage that locks. Well, thank you very much for that question. Certainly an interesting one that I've never really considered in the past, the Army Barracks idea, living in communal housing or perhaps housing that's somewhat temporary. You might be moving around. So what are the considerations for a gold or silver stacker in that situation? Well, I'm going to answer the first part of this question real quick, which was how much money should you invest to start? That is really entirely up to you, entirely up to the individual. I will say it's going to depend on how much risk you're willing to tolerate. I do view gold and silver as a safe haven asset, as kind of a core holding, but how much you're going to invest is going to just be determined by your particular situation and your objectives. I view gold and silver sort of just as like a savings account. It's how I save in real money instead of fiat currency, which is just constantly devaluing. However much you want to save in hard money, that's how much you should put into gold and silver. I will also say, you probably want to start small. Maybe do some dollar cost averaging, maybe just make regular purchases that'll insulate you somewhat from some of the volatility, especially the volatility in the silver market. It tends to be a little more volatile than gold. So dollar cost averaging over time, I think, is the right approach, regardless of how much money you want to put into gold and silver. Now to the perhaps more interesting part of this question. You asked, what would be a good storage safe for it? Well, I will tell you this. If you're going to store gold and silver bullion in a safe, you probably do want it to be something that you can bolt down. Now, so you say that you're living in an army barracks, you can't bolt anything down, just, you want some good storage that locks. The problem with that is even a fairly hefty safe that locks, if you can't bolt it down, you can just walk off with the safe. Any person with ill intent who wants to take your gold and silver, they can just kind of walk off with it. If you are going to get a safe and go that route, I would say you probably want something that could be bolted down. Also, you want to be in some kind of a situation, either a home or some property, where you can kind of obfuscate the existence of that safe. You don't want to put it in a real obvious place. So I would not personally go the route of lockable storage if I'm living in an army barracks. One thing you might look at is if you have some access to some family land or, maybe something that's adjacent to some public property, one thing you might do is cache some metals. That might sound kind of extreme to some of you, but, I do think that is not a bad way. And again, not financial advice. I'm not telling you what to do, but caching, I think, is a fairly secure way to store metals if, this is your situation. Also, you probably, if you do want the metal to be, accessible and in your possession, I will say you probably want to look at gold versus silver. And the reason I say that is because right now the gold to silver ratio, meaning the value of silver relative to gold, how many ounces of silver it takes to equal 1 ounce of gold at today's price, is about 80 to 1. So what you're looking at here with these 4 Scottsdale 20-ounce bars, that's 80 ounces of silver versus a 1 ounce coin. And if you're looking to keep metals in your possession in a place like a barracks or a dorm room, I think kind of obfuscating its presence, concealing it, and keeping your mouth shut about its existence is probably going to be a better bet than using a safe or something like that that someone might just, walk off with, and then they can take a crack at opening that lock at their convenience in a, location away from you. You'd probably be better off looking for something like, obscuring some gold. I don't know, maybe you hide it in a Foot Locker, maybe you hide it in an article of clothing. Certainly if you go with small fractional gold pieces, you can get very creative with where this stuff could be hidden. But, exercise caution with that. Make sure you're not hiding it in an old pair of sneakers that accidentally get thrown out or something. But I think that personally, in a situation like a barracks or a dorm room, that's kind of what I would be looking at. And also, you might consider doing some allocated metal storage. SD Bullion offers that with their SD depository program. You can check that out on their website. They'll store your gold and silver for you at very little cost. There's a lot of allocated storage programs like that out there. Another one that you might consider is from Alpine Gold Exchange. There's a link down in the description. Now, one thing you can do with them is you can buy gold-back currency. Now, I've got other videos on the channel about gold-back, so I won't get too into detail about these, but basically these are 24 karat gold notes made by Goldback Inc. And Alpine Gold Exchange has a program where you can buy these and they'll store them for you at no cost, and then you can take delivery whenever you want. You can get them mailed to you. I think you just have to pay the shipping cost. There's a link down in the description. It is an affiliate link. If you use that, you will help support the channel at no extra cost to yourself, and you can get some free allocated storage of those goldbacks. So another thing that you might consider doing if you're going to be in an army barracks, you probably want to consider storing, especially a large amount of precious metals, not in the barracks, some remote location would be my suggestion there. Now, moving on, and that was a great question. That was a very interesting one, a situation I hadn't really considered in the past. Moving on, we got another comment here, and this isn't really a question, it's just more of a tip from a viewer, but I thought it was really good info, and I'll read it to you and then I want to comment on it. My local coin dealer guy put it this way: stay as close to spot as you can, period. Unless you're collecting, don't buy higher premium stuff unless you're getting one because you just want to have one. He says to keep like 25% of your stack in small fractional stuff like pre-65 coinage. Even though the premium is higher, it's easier to barter with. Keep 25% in 1 and 5 ounce bars and rounds, and the rest in larger bars so you can cut the impact of the premium you paid on the higher cost fractional stuff with the lower cost bigger stuff. Hope that made sense. Buy smart. And I thought this was just such a great comment. It just goes to show the folks at the local coin shops really do know what they're talking about. I thought this was all great advice, no doubt about it. And certainly if you're just getting started stacking some fractional stuff like the 90% pre-65 coinage, like you said, is a great place to start. That way you have some fractional stuff, great for potentially bartering with if you need to. I just picked up these 90% silver quarters from SD Bullion. I haven't even taken them out of the wrappers yet, but I got $30 more face value of junk silver quarters. $50 also are really great, some of my personal favorites. One tip I will give you is that if you're shopping for junk silver and you see that the $50 and the quarters and the dimes are all the same price, go for the $50, because it seems like right now in the situation we're currently experiencing in the physical silver market, where the premiums on junk silver remains somewhat elevated, these $50 are fetching a little bit of a higher premium. So I think that that is a good tip. Stick to $50 if they're the same price. If the premiums are higher on the halves, I'd probably stick with the quarters and dimes, as I just did with this most recent purchase. I also thought it was a really good point about the collectible stuff, the higher premium stuff. I don't buy too much of that. I do have a few pieces. Every now and then I'll pick up something cool like this QE Infinity Round from the Awakening series, which I just thought was so cool. That I just had to have one because, the snake eating its tail, the infinity symbol, that is where we're going with QE. It's almost baked into the cake now, if you ask me. And so, every now and then I'll just pick up something cool like this. It's a little bit of a higher premium. It's not always just about, getting the most ounces for your money. However, most of the time that is the approach I try to stick to. And then the other part about diversifying your stack once you have some smaller stuff for barter into the larger bullion, I do think is very wise, because Sometimes, again, an ounce of silver is just an ounce of silver. And when you're buying in bulk, if you're making big purchases, things like the 1 kilo bars, the 100 ounce bars, those seem to be the lowest premium forms of bullion out there in the moment at the silver market, are a good way to balance out some of the higher premiums you might pay for, say, the junk silver or the perhaps more collectible pieces like this QE round. So yeah, all just very, very good information there. Now, the next tip I want to get to is from another user. This one said, my tip, look into what level your state will tax when you purchase. California requires $2,000 purchase of precious metals to avoid sales tax. Punitive. But there it is. Every state is different. Best states are the ones that have no sales tax. And yeah, this is definitely an important consideration. If you're a new stacker, or even if you've just been stacking for a while and you haven't considered this, or maybe you move states or something like that, you need to be aware of the sales tax on bullion. So this user said a $2,000 purchase in California was required to avoid sales tax. One resource I looked up said that it was a $1,500 minimum for California. But still, yeah, that just means that you've got to buy that much gold or silver in one shot to avoid paying sales tax. And I think in some places there are exemptions on the sales tax for legal tender coins like the silver eagles like this one. And perhaps also for the junk silver, there may be an exemption. It just depends on the state where you live in. So you got to research your own laws. I did look up some of the rules for some of the bigger states. So in Texas, for example, there's no sales tax on precious metals, and that is certainly how it should be. I think it's crazy to get taxed for converting your fiat money into real money, but that's the world we live in these days. But Texas, good job, no sales tax there. Florida has a $500 minimum apparently, so if you are buying gold or silver there, you got to pay $500 or buy $500 worth, or you're going to be paying the local sales tax. I do know that a lot of states, and we've covered this in videos in the past, they have these new legal tender laws. I think Missouri is one, for example, but there's several states that are passing these legal tender laws which make gold and silver legal tenders in the state, and that exempts all the bullion from sales tax. So it looks at least like the tax situation is getting a little more sane in some states, but you do have to research that because I think the sales tax in California is something like 9.5%. So, that's a huge markup, a huge additional payment just in taxes. So, if you live in California, for example, you definitely want to make sure you're hitting that minimum to avoid paying the sales tax. So something that you need to be aware of. Just do your own research. I'm certainly not a tax expert or an accountant. Realize that if you're paying sales tax for gold or silver bullion, you probably don't need to. You just need to make sure you're buying it right. And then, if you live overseas, I know this is a consideration as well, but that's completely outside of my scope of knowledge. Leave a comment down below if you live over in the UK or the EU or anywhere else really, and tell us what your local situation is with those value-added taxes and all that stuff. Next one is, where can you sell coins and bars back if you needed the cash? I'm in the UK, so probably different here. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure about the UK, but again, maybe some viewers from the UK or Europe can leave a comment down below to let us know where the best places to sell there are. Here in the US, you have a lot of options if you want to go ahead and sell your gold and silver bullion. Probably one of the best places is to go wherever you bought it from. So, for example, if you bought from sdbullion.com, you can go to sdbullion.com/sell, and they will buy your bullion back from you. And they have pretty competitive rates, although I do think in the case of SD Bullion, there are some minimums, like you have to sell 500 ounces of silver to them to qualify for the best rates. Your local coin shop also is certainly something worth checking out. If you have some local coin shops near you, I would recommend simply calling them and seeing what their policy is for buying back whatever kind of gold or silver bullion you have that you want to sell. And they should be able to tell you, what they'll pay. And, if you're going to pawn shops, things like that, you probably want to be a little more circumspect. I think most pawn shops, in my experience, are going to give you, a kind of a rip-off type price for your gold and silver bullion. But gold and silver are easy to sell. I mean, they're some of the most liquid commodities in the world. They are a physical product, so of course, you might have to deal with shipping them and that sort of thing, but you can always use insured shipping. And yes, It's true, gold and silver are not as easy to sell as, say, like the SLV ETF. So if you're looking to get into and out of silver and precious metals quickly, you can use like the GLD ETF for gold, and you can use PSLV or SLV for silver. But, I don't really have a lot of expertise in this because I've never sold an ounce of gold or silver, not the physical stuff. I have sold some ETFs, but my gold and silver I view as a very long-term holding. And so, I don't sell, but you certainly can. I mean, there's tons of places to sell. Just do a little research, call around in your local market. But if you don't have any local coin shops, check out SD Bullion's options. They do have very competitive rates. I know I haven't looked at the prices recently, but there was a time back in March when they were paying over spot for 100-ounce bars. I mean, they were paying more than the spot price for 100-ounce bars, so that is pretty competitive. Next up, we've got a question here. Is it worth it to invest in vintage silver bars, e.g. Engelhard, A-Mark, etc.? Do their value appreciate over time compared with the usual government bullion stuff? Well, that is a good question. Certainly a very good question. Now, the regular government mint bullion stuff has actually seen the premiums explode in recent times. So that's kind of a unique situation with the US Mint just not producing enough silver eagles to meet demand. So recently, no, the vintage bars have not kept up with the official government mint stuff. In fact, 100-ounce bars, large bars, have some of the lowest premiums on them right now. And I will say vintage stuff is very cool. I have this 100-ounce Engelhard bar. I'm sure this was made back in the 1980s. I mean, these things haven't been made in a while. I do think they're very cool pieces of history. I would not pay an exorbitant premium for them. They're not that cool. I bought this one back when the price of silver was about 15 bucks. I think I paid 25 cents over the spot price per ounce for it, so picked it up at a very low premium. If you can buy vintage stuff versus things that are still being produced and pay a low premium for the vintage one, I will take them all day. Although do be careful, because some of this vintage stuff, there are some counterfeits out there, so you got to do your homework on that, verify the authenticity of your bullion. If you can buy vintage silver bars at a low premium, yeah, get them, definitely. Because, it's always possible that if you familiarize yourself with these things, that you might find a really great deal and then be able to flip it, or just have something that has a higher premium associated with it that you were able to pick up cheap. Like, I think I did great by paying 25 cents over spot for this bar because, Engelhard is a vintage name. It's a recognizable name. They're not making them anymore, so the premiums might go up on that product. If you've ever seen Rob Sultan's channel, he runs a Mineral Exchange, which is like a place where you can buy and sell vintage bars and other bullion products. I remember him telling a story on a video about how he kind of got started with the whole Mineral Exchange thing. Was he just had a lot of knowledge about vintage bullion products. And if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I saw this video, but I think he said he was like doing a tour of the country, kind of just driving around, visiting bullion shops, coin shops, pawn shops, anywhere where they might be selling physical bullion. And he was buying vintage bars that he would encounter, sometimes, way below their real market value, because people were just selling it for the spot price. They were lumping it in there with their other bullion. And so certainly if you have some knowledge of the market and you're able to sort of buy below value, then yeah, that's a great thing to invest in. But I would not personally want to pay the higher premium just with the hopes that the premium and collectability continues to increase. I do tend to err on the side of an ounce of silver is an ounce of silver, and I like to get the most metal for my money. But that's a great question, and it's kind of a nuanced answer. If you want to get some information about the vintage bar market, where it's at right now, go to eBay, do a completed auction search for silver bars of various sizes, and you can see the prices that these things are selling for in real time in a real marketplace. And that certainly is a good place to do your homework if you want to learn about the premiums on vintage bullion products and, be able to spot those great deals out in the wild, so to speak. Certainly, it's always a good idea to educate yourself about the bullion products that you are stacking. So I hope that this video was helpful. Just some more gold and silver bullion tips. Most of these were from the audience. I thought the information was just so great that all of you share. It's like a collective hive mind of stackers. So I really appreciate everybody who left these great comments. If you have any tips, leave them down below. Maybe I'll include them in a future video. I would love to do that. So please let me know what you think about the tips that we covered in today's video, any that you might have from your years of stacking or from your interaction with your coin dealers, or really just any thoughts or information you care to share. And thanks for watching, everybody. Stay safe and happy stacking, and I will catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.